James, good afternoon. How are you today?
Outstanding.
You might have actually done it.
Yeah.
Yes. You've got the most unique small business people in the studio today, and we'll explain in just a minute, but this is outside of our normal podcast, but It's really not. It really is kind of small business.
It is. It's small business, but it's a nonprofit all at one time, and it's really near and dear to me. Obviously, I've got my roots have always been in ministry and missions work, and so we actually have the pleasure of introducing my father, Delbert Groves. Hey, Dad.
He brought his own crowd too.
I know. And we also have a special guest with him that's going to be working in his ministry there up in Zambia, Africa. That's Anita Held. Anita.
Yeah, welcome in, guys.
Welcome. Say hi.
Hi.
And so being part of this podcast is going to be special for me because we get to really talk about some things that are near and dear. I'll try not to choke up while we're doing it. But being the son of a missionary, the son of a pastor, which was my father, who was the son of a missionary, son of a pastor, is special. And to the point that even when Kelly and I, we actually spent a year out there living time in Zambia, Africa. So, Dad, just say hi to everybody. Let them know kind of where we are, what the ministry is in Zambia, and we want to dig in some questions.
Well, it's great to be with you. I mean, it really is. I've been listening to these different podcasts for a long time, and I'm finally back in the United States and being able to have a little bit of time with you to do this. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. I've been in missions and ministry now for well over 35 years. And in Africa, I did time in Zaire, which turned into the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah, you were in Congo before it was Congo.
Right.
From Congo to Zaire.
No, it was Zaire, then it went into Congo, the DR Congo, right? And then just due to the unrest in the countries and all the problems that go on in those type of settings, we shifted south to the neighboring country of Zambia, and that's where we've been there for like the last 20, I can't even count the years anymore. Since 2000, so that's 24 years.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's where we've been, and a lot of things have happened over the years.
Yeah, I remember you didn't go full time to Zambia until after I graduated high school and my time at Full Sail.
Right.
But there was multiple times when you were in country in Zaire that it was dangerous. It was perilous. You guys have been evacuated out multiple times, lived in huts with no running water and bathrooms. And I remember seeing you didn't have ceilings in the house you were in, so you had to put trash bags on the ceiling just to keep the roaches from falling on your food while you're eating at night, and like deep bush type living.
Wow.
Right? So, although I've been to Africa, I've never lived in that deep bush lifestyle. So I was happy when you decided, when God led you away from full-time in Congo and into Zambia, because I think it seems to be that things got a little more safer, convenient, simpler, not simpler, but just you get a little more substance and you can find a nice place. So when you got to Zambia, how long were you there before you developed the New Life Center? And let's talk a little bit about the New Life Center.
Yeah, well, the New Life Center is basically a resource center for the church. We were working within the church element of the United Methodist Church. So as we came out of Congo at that time, that was really in 1999, basically we had to leave just because of all the unrest in that country. A lot of war, a lot of problems, a lot of headaches, just unsafeness to be there. So that's when we shifted into the southern country of Zambia. And we just started working, but we knew that that there's a lot of work. And the church, as far as the ministry part of it goes, was really new within Zambia. The church within Congo had been there for, I don't know, close to 100 years. In Zambia, nothing. We had like 4 or 5 congregations type of thing. And it was just a brand new chalkboard, so to speak, to begin to work on. And so we went to work right away, and we knew that the needs were great. We didn't have a clue what we were really doing. We didn't have any funding and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. We just knew we just had to move. And as we did, we started working with what was there, and we started seeing the needs. And out of that, it just kind of grew into what is now known as the New Life Center. and it's a facility. It kind of reminds me now, after all these years of developing it, and it's taken time, of course, it kind of reminds me of an old youth camp. We got bunk houses, we have guest houses.
Yeah,
we have,
I can visualize it. That's a good description.
we have a big facility. It's not a church, but it's just a big building where we hold meetings and so forth. We do not hold Sunday morning type of worship services there because we use it more like a retreat center type of a thing, and we hold conferences there of all kind. It's not only used just with our own ministries, but we let other organizations and other groups use it and come in and use it all the time. And it's there, and it's developed into a number of other ministries as well. But that's what the facility was there for. And then out of that, that's where all the different resources started coming. And then how we started reaching out into all the different communities. We started out, as I mentioned a minute ago, we only had like 4 or 5 congregations to work with. I don't even know how many.
And that's the whole country of Zambia?
The whole country of Zambia right? for the church. And it's now, I think it's somewhere over 150 different congregations. I've personally been able to be involved in not only helping build up congregations, but facilities of church buildings, worship centers, and this type of thing. So
that's a big deal.
It's been fun.
I mean, to develop a building that you can build with funding, with people sponsoring from America. I remember when we started doing them, you were having a problem because you would fund it as you built it. And then things were going to they kept getting stolen while you're building it, right? So you'd build the building, you put the roof, you couldn't build it too tall because, they're short and money. And then you put metal sheets on for the roof, and then you come back the next week and they're all stolen, right?
Oh my.
So you had to innovate a way to create a building tall enough that the average African couldn't get a little ladder and start stealing your stuff. But yet you had to do that almost immediately. So you designed these what the trusses basically, where you would just tilt up a wall and it was almost like an open air barn, right? Mm-hmm. And then you could build the blocks. So we would pour the slab, put these I-beams up, and then we put the roof on it, and all of a sudden now we've got ourselves at least a pavilion where we can start holding services. And then you either buy the brick, or usually we'd make them by hand, all the bricks, and you would just tuck them inside these walls, and then we build decorative things. Maybe it'd be windows, maybe just be the breeze blocks, and then teams would come over and they would build pews, and they would and we would just have work teams after work teams. I mean, I remember we built several churches while I lived out there, and being able to design this new tilt wall. What did you call that? Is it just explain this? The way we had to design the churches. Just an I-beam structure?
Yeah, it was a steel I-beam structure. But you're basically referring to in the beginning, in Africa, a lot of things made out of mud and grass roofs, that kind of thing. And they'd a congregation would get started, and they'd go out and build a church, and they'd put up mud walls and put up a grass roof, and then they'd come to me and say, well, can you help us put on a real proper type of roof, a metal iron sheet roof, corrugated roof? And we'd do that, and then 4 or 5 rainy seasons, years go by, and the walls fall down. They're made out of mud, and then the roof comes down, and then everything gets stolen. So, and I was telling that story to a pastor's wife that came out from the United States, and she said, well, why don't you just put the roof up first? And that's when it all kind of kicked in. And I looked into it. So I found a company out of South Africa that made kind of what I think in this country, in the U.S., they call them butler buildings or steel beams, and that kind of a thing. And so we bought 1 or 2 of those things, and I forgot what it cost, a couple $20,000 some odd dollars. But then once I started seeing how they were done, I started finding a couple guys, and we started building them ourselves, building our own steel beams, our own structures, our own trusses, the whole thing. And we could put up a really nice structure for like $10,000.
Oh, wow.
And we built up to this day, I think it's 26 or 27 of those that we have built up or have built in the country and used them. And they're a lot of fun to put together. And then we host what we call work team, life teams, whatever you want to call them. People come out from different churches or organizations, and they just want to kind of come out and help, which they can do in Zambia. You couldn't do something like that really in Congo, to be honest with you, because of just so much unrest, and just logistically it's horrible. But for Zambia, it's very doable. And so they'd come out, and they'd come out and help us put up these structures and whatever level, whatever point it might be, putting the roof on, or putting the beams up, or building the pews, or varnishing the pews, or whatever the situation, putting the windows, the doors in. It's been a lot of fun over the years. Very, very, very fun.
And they're bigger facilities than the mud churches were. I mean, I've been in many a church where you get a duct to get in the doors, and they're not very big, and the even the pews are just basically run off, wood scraps.
Yeah, many a time I about knocked myself out going into a church. They want me to come speak at a church, and Africans in general are pretty short people. And I'd go walking in, and then there would just be, and it's no windows, a mud hut. It's like walking into a dark room,
Right.
And so, and there'd be a log beam across for a truss, and I'd go bam, I hit my head in that thing, and instead I have to go sit down behind the pew or the pulpit for a while just to get my the stars to clear out. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun. That's one word for it, fun. So building the churches was obviously one thing. So when we say a resource center, it's not. I mean, I almost think like a rec center, right? So it's a multi-purpose room. You play basketball in it, and you have church services at New Life. But there's other ministries that you've now added on. So, you built a school. You built, Mom's got her chain ministry that's there. What are some of the other things you guys are doing at New Life?
Well, where the resource part of it comes in, one of it, of course, is the work teams that come out. Those are very helpful because they really are the ones that, missions for the United States, people want to be involved in missions. And unfortunately, a lot of times, it can only just be the financial part of it. You might have a missionary come to speak at your church or at some function, wherever you at a conference or whatever it might be. And you kind of get glimpses. It's really hard to tell the true story with words and show a few pictures and this type of thing. But when it really starts kicking in is when people get on the plane and come over. And Zambia is one of those lovely countries where we can host them. We can, we have housing. We can, for people to stay there. We have transport to pick them up at the airports and all these things. And there's a lot of other benefits to that, and we'll get into that in a minute. But so one of the big resources is able to get people involved, engaged cross-culturally. And that's a big thing. It's just not about money. It's really about engaging into working with other people outside of your own comfort zones, seeing how it works, and then see what's really important to invest your time and your money into. And out of that came a lot of things, what we now call the Sister Church program, where we've been able to do the ones we just mentioned. Mom got involved with education, health and education, and that became a big deal too, your mom, Sandy. And and that's grown into, and again, where these work teams, life teams would come out and help and engage with that. And they begin to develop those relationships. And from that's grown into it. We were sponsoring children, for example, to go to school over there. School over in Africa is you wear a uniform, you have to have certain shoes and certain pants.
Sort of formal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very formal, very British, very, very proper. It's
not free.
And it's not free. Well, maybe the buildings, but you still got to pay for all these things. You got to pay for the books and all this type of thing. But the teaching levels were very poor, and we had at one point, we were sponsoring over 150 children to go to school. Well, then they used the British system, so you go for several years, and then you have to do an exam. Well, they weren't passing their exams because they couldn't speak English, they couldn't write English, or read English properly, and that was the big deal. Everything was done in English, but a lot of the times the schools were using the vernacular languages, and there's over 70 different languages in Zambia. So anyhow, with that being said, we realized there was a problem, so we had to do something called tutoring, and tutor them in the English. Read, write, and speak English properly. And then we brought in some math and a bit of science. And out of this whole thing came this whole educational thing where they'd literally go to school for the day, and then we'd go pick them up in a vehicle and bring them over to the center. And we set up and had a tutoring system set up all that. We'd give them a little bit of food to eat because they've been at school all day and they're hungry,
sure.
and there's no luncheon like it is here in the United States. And so they eat something, and then they could stay for another couple hours and be tutored. And that ministry grew out of that. And then it also came into health. And then there's a whole program of just what it means, because there's a lot of basic health issues that can be resolved with basic training, like worms and And I mean, there's certain things you can get, how to
Just basic hygiene. even.
hygiene stuff,
Yeah.
and it makes a big, big difference. And a lot of these young women start having children at early ages. They don't understand these things, so she'd go in and start teaching those things at the center and also into the village, and it would grow out from there.
All right, let me ask you this. Are you all working completely independent of a local or federal government there?
We work well. It's an independent work. The government would like to get more involved with it, but you got to be very careful with some of that because it turns into something else. But they're aware of what we're doing, and they want to be a part of it, and they want us to do it. So we just independently work sort of with them and without them.
But they're not providing funding or personnel.
No, there's no financial support for any of that from the local government. So we just help with all of that. Well, another thing, I did the printing, if you remember, that was my background before I went into full-time ministry services in the United States. Right here in Orlando, Florida, I had my own printing company and did that for many, many years. So printing's always been kind of my key thing. And years before I got into full-time ministry, when it was Zaire, I even helped put a print shop over there, and then I built another one there and started getting that going. That ministry never really took off as well as I thought it was going to. It's still there. It still can be functioned, but it's been very dormant for many, many years. In ministry, you try a lot of things. Some things really fly well, and other things do not.
Okay.
And that was one of them. Then, of course, the PET, what we call the PET ministry. And a PET is an acronym for Personal Energy Transportation. And that's going to be changing here really quickly. We're just going to call it mobility. Straight out, because what it is it's a 3-wheeled cart that is hand powered. You pedal it with your hands, and it's for people that cannot walk, people that have lost their mobility, people that can't. And there's a big need for that for whatever reasons. Many of them from birth defects to war, landmine type of stuff.
Okay,
and or just accidents, and a lot of it's just old age. I mean, especially our dear African women who grow their food in the gardens, and they get the water from the rivers and the streams and stuff, and carry children, and Africans love carrying things on their head. Believe it or not, I've seen many African women carry firewood and water and different things on their head, and it actually weighs more than they do.
Oh my!
And then they'll go walk for kilometers down the road, and and as they get older, their spines and their backs just tear down, and they lose their mobility. So these carts have just become a very big thing, and it has grown into a marvelous ministry. This is where Anita, who is here with us today, she fell in love with this ministry once we started moving down into Livingston, and she's now coming on full time with us and going to be helping this old man, relieve him of a lot of the responsibilities and the headaches that come with that stuff. But it's a great ministry, the mobility, the cart ministry, and given those. We've built... I really don't know. I'm going to say probably well over 20,000 of those things within just with there. This ministry grew into the United States, and they started building them here in the United States. It's now known over here as Mobility Worldwide. They've sent them out in over like 90 countries around the world, and we just celebrated last year, I think it was, 100,000 of these things have gone out.
So who developed those initially?
There was a marvelous missionary, Methodist missionary friend of mine by the name of Larry Hills. He had a gentleman come up to him while we were both in Zaire at the time. This goes back 26, 7, 8 years now. I can't remember. And he had a gentleman come up to him that was needed help, and he couldn't walk. And he said, "Could you help me?" So he went and found some wheels and got his welding machine out, and he welded up a little frame and got some wood and built this 3-wheel cart in an old bicycle chain and type of thing. And he built it. That's what missionaries do, stuff like that. And he's an old farmer, and he had no problem doing it. Well, he built one, and the next thing you know, a couple of weeks later, there was 5 more people that showed up. Well, I need one too, And it got to the point where he said, "Oh my goodness, this is a big deal." So he went to one of our annual conferences that we had for the church, and he asked all the people and the pastors that were there at this particular conference, go back to your villages and find out how great of a need one of these things really are in your area as well. And within no time, a few months, the number was well over 100,000.
And you
quickly.
just had no idea.
Nobody knows, because when you're disabled like this and you can't walk in Africa, a lot of times this is associated with bad juju, if you know what I mean. and they become shunned, for lack of better words. They're pushed back in the back of the village in the corner. Don't talk with them. Don't have anything to do with them, and don't tell anybody about them. They're just waiting for them to grow old and die.
Oh my!
And so their needs are there, and how big of a need you just don't really know. So that's where it all started, from that need right there. He came back to the United States and talked with another gentleman that was involved with fundraising and so forth, and they raised money and started making a prototype and shipped them these prototypes over to Zaire.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry, at that particular time, was we're going to be retiring from mission service. And he came to me and he says, Delbert, I think you need to take this thing over and help me with it. And we built together this first little shop where we were building them and putting them together and going to give them out. And I looked at it and I said, Larry, I don't really know if I want to get into this, because I had a lot of other things going on too. Is this another one of those ministries with something else that's going to eat up my time? And he went and tattled on me to the bishop. And the bishop came to me and said, I really think you need to do this. And I said, okay, well, it's kind of like my boss coming to me, do this. So I took it on, and I'm really glad I did. It has turned out to be one of the most blessed things I can do. I can't begin to tell you. I literally could write a book of how many lives have been touched and changed. It's an immediate miracle sort of thing. When you give somebody that's crawling around in the mud, in the dirt, we have 2 seasons in Africa. We call it muddy and dusty. And when you pick people up out of the mud or out of the dust that cannot walk on their own and put them in one of these carts and give them back their mobility, it is life-changing, not only for them, but even my own heart. And then Anita can contest to this too. That's what she's always saying. And it's a marvelous ministry, and it's really grown over the years, mm-hmm. and we're going to continue to do the best job we can do. We raised the funding for these, to tell you a little bit about that part of it. We raised the funding for them. We build them, and sometimes they build them in the United States and ship them over to us. It's a cooperative thing. And then we distribute them totally free. We just give them to the people.
Wow.
There's no money involved. The only time any kind of money might be involved with it is if we need to send 50 or whatever to another part of the country, and there's some transport involved with it. But the actual card itself is completely, totally free, and we just give them to them. And what a blessing that is. And we've had I personally have had the privilege of giving away thousands, tens of thousands of them over the years. And to watch how it changes lives. And Anita and I went last year. We gave some at a school for children that were disabled, and some of them had to walk. What was it, 10 kilometers or something, or tried to walk or crawl 10 kilometers just to go to school. What a joy to was able to give those young kids mobility.
Well, and then what I think what's difficult for Americans to understand is, well, why not just use a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Why? Because wheelchairs have nice, thin, fragile, skinny wheels, right? And in Zambia, it's all dirt roads, full of rocks.
Right, exactly. And potholes and sand and on the story goes. Wheelchairs are nice. They're important, but they're for hospital rooms and floors and then around the house, and they're designed for that. These things are wheelbarrow wheels. I mean, you can go to the website. Right now, it's just simply petzambia.org, and you can find this whole thing. We're also on Facebook and those things too. But these things are built like little tanks. I mean, they're designed, and they don't use bicycle chains. We actually use a farm chain and hardened sprockets. I mean, we put something, but they're very basic. They're just metal and a little bit of wood and solid hard rubber wheels. And
Bill, we try to actually use one as a functioning person with legs. It's almost impossible. We would do races, and we're we're sitting in the chairs, and our feet are touching the ground, and then it's hand cranked, right? So you're people can't see me now, but you're literally just cranking your head, around chest level, and there's a brake that pushes down, so you need to, and then Dad's like, "Okay, good job, everybody. Now lift your legs off the ground," because that's how the Zambians do it. Because
they don't have legs.
They don't have legs. They can't use their legs. And so then I pick my legs across them. I'm like, I couldn't go 2 feet. It was crazy. But the gift is not just for the person, but it's also for their family. I've seen people be delivered in wheelbarrows to church services. We're doing a healing service or some sort of church service, and the family member wants to go to the church service. They can't get there, so they find an old wheelbarrow, and
my goodness,
they're bringing their family member in the wheelchair.
So what's the lifespan on one of those things?
Well, that's funny. It really depends on where they go and the person that gets it. Some people just abuse them,
Okay.
but some of them, this is like a big thing. Like I just gave one away just before we came back, and he had it for, I think he said 11 years. But it just really was wore out. The tires are gone, the
Sure.
chain's gone. So we put him in the other one, and he looked at the old one, and he literally said, "Goodbye, old friend."
Oh.
It just hit me like that, and I go, "Wow, this was his life."
Yeah.
And now he's got a brand new one. And I said, well, hopefully this one's going to
Yeah,
last you
that's-
another 10 years.
wow.
So
are you all able to do repairs or refurbishment on them?
yeah, we do that because basically there's 8 bearings on the whole thing.
Mhm.
Each wheel has 2 bearings, and then the hand crank has 2 bearings, and they're all the exact same bearing.
Oh,
the way it's designed. It's
terrific.
beautifully designed for the simplicity of it. So to replace a bearing is very simple. Pop it out, put a new one in. The sprockets, the same thing. Just pop them out, put on new ones. The chains, the same thing. So we do repair them. A lot of times if people have one that needs to be repaired, we do like this one. Now, he gave us his old one,
Mhm.
and he took a new one.
Yes.
That old one, we just refurbish it and give it right back out to
I love
somebody
that.
else.
That's what a terrific
That's how we do
idea.
it.
It's a metal frame, so it's a welded metal frame
Yeah.
with wood
Mhm.
seats and wood sides. I mean, I've seen women carry their children in a little bucket in the back,
Is that right?
because they got to get their kids to and from places.
Wow.
It's a really amazing ministry, and to think that all of us out here in America for $150 can change someone's life for 11 years. It really is. I know it was a hardship at first, but now there's welders, there's carpenters that are building these things in country.
So you all have a shop there that's literally building them,
Right.
and you have staff that's their job every day. They're building.
That's right. That's how we do it. Ever since the last several years, though, it's kind of really slowed down. COVID kind of really cranked everything down.
Okay.
Financial giving and all this type of thing. So we haven't been able to really do with it like we really want to, like we have been. We were building a minimum of 50 a month, or over 500 a year, plus the ones that was sent to us from outside the United States. And I'm not making a joke, and Anita can contest to this. She's sitting in the corner there being very quiet. But the truth of it is I could give away 200 a month and not even blink an eye. That the need is that great.
Wow.
So we don't have a stockpile of them somewhere,
Yes.
this type of thing. We're able to get rid of them as fast because we work off of list. People submit to us list. We've built up this lovely network of organizations and people in the government. The governments have, and this is not, I was telling Bill just a few minutes ago before we got started, Zambia is landlocked, and there's 8 different countries around the country. And so, and there's roads to these other countries, and we're actually involved in getting these carts out into other countries as well. So we have actually built this network now throughout Zambia and even outside of Zambia in other countries, Malawi, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and so forth, all of these other countries. And people will submit a list to us saying, we need 20 of these, we need 30 of these. And these are, every country has their own disabled associational groups. And then there's churches, there's hospitals, there's missionaries, there's all kinds of situations, just word of mouth.
Mhm.
A lot of times people just show up in a car or even public transport or in a wheelbarrow, as James says, and they say, we need help. And we just give them to them, and away they go. So that's how it's done.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
And so you obviously you were building them in Zaire, Congo. We've shifted the operation to Kitwe, Zambia, which really isn't that far from Congo. It's the very northern side of Zambia. And you've now opened another center on the south side of Zambia as well, at Livingston, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Now, Victoria Falls is there in Livingston,
That's
Zambia.
correct.
And so tell me about that facility a little bit.
The one in Livingston?
Yeah.
Well, it's brand new.
Mhm.
It's just now functioning in the sense of just getting started. We haven't quite completely finished building it.
But the
'cause
vision for it is to have a much
Yeah.
larger facility there.
Yeah, well, not so much larger facility, but just an expansion of the ones because to drive from Kitwe to Livingston is like a 2-day drive.
Mhm.
So it's a long ways. And again, transport in Africa is probably one of the biggest problems throughout Africa in general, especially sub-Saharan Africa, Central Africa. It's just enormous problem transporting anywhere. So to come from Kitwe even to Livingston, that's a big deal. So what we're trying to do is, since it's a landlocked country, is to and reach out into more countries, is to have a way and a means through the road levels to get things in and out of the country and into the other countries. So the one in Livingston is a new facility. I mean, it's not even finished yet, but the cart part of it, the Mobility Zambia part of it, is up and going. Right now, it's more of an assembly and distribution point. We have some equipment there that we're going to be setting up and doing a little bit more of the building part of it. But the main building one is up in Kitwe. And there, I mean, we literally, for lack of better, I mean, it's the truth. We go out and get the trees out of the forest and make our own lumber. We buy local angle iron and build the frames, and the wheels come out of direct. We get a lot of them direct from China, the chain and the bearings and all these type of things. So there's quite a bit involved logistically to get it all together. James, you mentioned a minute ago, $150. There for a while, we were able to build one for $100. It was $150. I think it's going to be a little bit more. Things have just, everything in the world right now has gone up.
Yeah, so true.
But it's still.
Yeah, but even $250,
it's worth every penny.
Worth every penny. Yeah.
Every penny. I can't think of a better thing to invest money into to help bless somebody and change their life. Because some stories that come out of the carts is just simply kids go to school, then they go into higher education. People start small businesses. Some of them right out of the very cart itself. I've seen them sell things out of the cart and stuff. I was running into a guy in Livingston about a year or so back, and he's going down one of the roads there in Livingston on a cart, a pet. We called it a pet, but a cart. And so I just pulled over and stopped, and I looked at it. This thing was falling apart. And I said to him, wow, when did you get this thing? And he was telling me the whole story and how he got it many, many years ago and this type of thing. But I said, well, you're going to need a new one. I said, well, what are you doing? He says, well, I live in Lusaka, now, which is the capital of the country. And it's a day drive, whatever. And he literally puts his cart on the train, an old donkey train, and comes to Livingston and buys plastic cups and plates and different things like that, because you can get these things that come out of Zimbabwe very cheap there. And then he puts them all back on the train with his cart, and he goes back to Livingston and sells it, and that's how he makes a living. He never could have done that without the cart.
Yeah, wow.
And unfortunately, that particular time, he says, but I had a terrible problem. He says, I got all my stuff together and somebody came and stole it. So I was at least able to give him a brand new cart, because I happened to have one at the time. And I think we gave him a little bit of money to help try to get a few more things so he can get going. But that's what I'm trying to say. You know, it literally changes people's lives. It gets them out of absolutely doing nothing to where they actually have a life.
Yeah. One of our taglines is the gift of mobility, right? And it's so true, because, you know, you can give someone clothes, you can give them maybe a little bit of medicine or something, you know, a dentist or whatever. But to give someone who can't walk the gift of mobility, not just to get around, but to get around and almost make people jealous, because it's such a nice little unit, is a true blessing. And selfishly, when we get to give them away, I feel that we get almost as much as we give, because our
always the giver,
so full. Yeah. And frankly, this is kind of where Anita has kind of jumped in, because you guys have known each other now for over 15 years, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to find out how she landed in Africa.
And so Anita, you lived in Livingston, so the south side of Zambia, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit how this came about, a little bit about your backstory, and we'll talk about the future.
I headed out to Africa in 2003 on a safari and fell in love with the people. I was in Zimbabwe, right across the border from Zambia, and my heart was always led to the people of Zambia. When I received salvation in 2005 and immediately felt called to go to the mission field to Africa. And about 6 months later, I found myself in Zambia, and I never left. I lived in a tent on a mission base on the 14th rapid of a gorge.
Wow.
And in a military tent, and I was walking hours into a village with a dog I adopted and ministering to anyone I could that would hear my story about Jesus. And so I started off that way. I met my husband in Zambia. He was a microlight pilot. And we got married. We started our own ministry. We started working with widows, orphans, teaching youth skills, life skills. The needs there are so endless. And so he had a flying pulpit up in the air in his microlight, and he ministered to like 28,000 passengers for his entire career.
Wow.
And he had a 15-minute window to do it. He called it his flying pulpit. It was his passion. And he assisted me in feeding kids. My heart is to feed people. I want to feed people and help wherever I can help. It was about 15 years ago when Sandy and Delbert walked up into our house. We housed people and fed people. They needed a place to stay. They were missionaries. Our doors were open. And from that point on, we were family.
Yeah.
And I've been in Africa about almost nearly 20 years solid, doing ministry.
And you mentioned earlier before the podcast, you don't travel back and forth.
No, I stay right in Livingston. My husband was from Germany. I was from the States. We both were passionate about Africa, called to Africa. We stayed in Africa. We had our children there. We have 2 kids, and I have a stepson from a previous marriage of his. And we lived in Africa. That was our life and our ministry and our calling. And we met Sandy and Delbert, and they became family because we didn't have family because we were both removed from our countries. And they became parents to us, grandparents to our kids. God says he provides family. He'll put us into our families. So that's exactly what he did. And we carried on ministry. In 2020, my husband died in an aviation crash. And my girls and I got displaced into America. We hadn't been here for 20 years. And we got stuck during COVID. It was a little unfortunate, all that.
I'm curious, how was that experience for you have 2 daughters? Mm-hmm. How was that experience for them coming back to the States?
Ooh, that was interesting. Chloe was 4 and Bella was 8. They spent their life growing up in Africa, so that is their norm. We came back, and it was a little shocking only because it was during COVID. Mm-hmm. And we got stuck in lockdown for a year and couldn't get back home. We were supposed to come and grieve for 3 months with some friends, and then that turned into a year, and we lost a lot of stuff in our life. We had to sell off a lot of our belongings and lay down the ministry. I had 21 families that we cared for and were part of our ministry. Take care of at least 10 each person. And so one by one, we let them go. I think with COVID it was really hard because everybody got isolated. And so we ended up isolated in New Hampshire in the woods and trying to grieve and figure out our lives and where does God want us now and why are we here? We were self-funded missionaries for 20 years. So I would teach all of our disciples that whatever God puts in your hands, you can use, and to be self-sufficient. And so that's what we did. We started businesses, and I trained widows how to sew, and I sold their work and sold photography. We opened up shops in the international airport that funded all of our ministry. So when my husband died, through some corruption and things, we didn't get anything for his death, and then our shop shut down because the airport shut down. So overnight, we lost everything. And then tried to figure it out, and that was really, really hard. A church did fund us to go back and try to pick up the pieces after about a year, and I knew that I needed to have a purpose or I couldn't survive through what I went through. And I needed to show my girls that God has a purpose and a plan for your life, regardless of your situation or your circumstances, because that's what we've been ministering
Right.
to these people who sit in pain, and I'm no different. And this is just a season, and we have to keep focused on what God has for us. So we went back to Africa, and Sandy and Delbert were there, and they had the base built by the time I got back, and they had the pets. And the interesting thing was when we met Sandy and Delbert 15 years ago, my husband was so on fire for the pet ministry because when he was 20 years old, he was in a motorcycle crash and he became quadriplegic. And God had healed him, and he ended up walking. They said he'd never walk again. And the Lord healed him, and he walked out of a hospital, got back on a motorcycle, and crossed Africa and never left Africa. And his message was that God transformed his life and healed him. And he always wanted to be a part of what Delbert was doing. And he was so fired up about it, but it never happened. And so now I found myself with my girls without him back in Livingston. And I looked at Delbert and I was like, wow, look what you brought to Livingston. Like, this is incredible. I wish he was here to be a part of it, but can I take one? And I know somebody that really needs it. Can I give it? And he's like, yeah, go for it. Take as many as you want. I put the thing on top of my Land Cruiser. I drove into the bush, and there was this little girl. And her mother was carrying her on her back. I always saw her in town. She was about 9 years old, very big to be carried on a mother's back. And I asked what happened to her, and she said her name is Hope. And when she was 3, the children beat her until she couldn't walk. And so now they shun her because they think it's witchcraft, even though they did this to her. And she sits on a little mat in the back of the room, and she doesn't go anywhere. The kids don't play with her. She just sits there. So I went to the back of the room, and I started talking to Hope. And I realized in that moment, my situation wasn't so bad. Yes, I was in a lot of pain, and I felt emotionally disabled, but I had nothing like this little girl's story. And I said, Hope, do you know God still sees you? And he knows you, and he hasn't forgotten you. And she just looked at me. And I said, I want to show you what God's done for you today. And we carried her out, and we put her on this little pet. And I said, God wants to give you a driver's license today. And in Africa, I mean, people can't even get a bicycle, let alone a driver's license. And she looked at me, and she started laughing. She just started laughing. Mm. And I said, God sees you, and he knows, and he's got a purpose and a plan for your life. Don't ever give up. And I said, Hope, just start moving your arms and start pedaling. And she started laughing and started pedaling. And in 5 seconds, the entire village of kids were chasing her in the back, screaming, Hope, Hope, Hope.
Oh,
and she became a superstar in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Thank you, Lord.
And in that moment, what it did to me, it restored my life and my hope back. And I realized these mobility devices, they don't just give the gift of mobility. Yes, we help somebody disabled. They restore hope. They restore dignity back to people that have been shunned from society, and they give them a purpose. And without a purpose, we'll perish. Without a purpose, I know I wouldn't make it.
Yeah.
Without a purpose, my kids wouldn't make it. Without a purpose, that little girl would sit and rot in the back of a mat. But now her life has changed. She's the rock star of the village. She's got all the friends. She goes to school. She goes to the market and puts vegetables in her cart. She takes her little friend on the back. She's
nice.
It totally changed her life. And
Well, that was Jesus' core message, wasn't it? It was restoring hope and dignity.
And that's my message. When I hand out these mobility devices, the first thing I tell them, because they feel so insignificant. They feel like nothing. They've been told by society that they're worthless. And they're just waiting for them to die because they're a burden. And the first thing I do is I sit there and I tell them, God sees you. He's not forgotten. And he has a plan for you, irrespective of your circumstances. And every day I say that, it ministers back to me. And I think this is the greatest gift you can give somebody. And I don't think I'll ever stop doing it because I don't want my children to ever see anything different. I want that to be the focus of their lives too, that they'll always have a purpose. Bad things happen to everybody, but God's got a plan.
So moving forward, right? So we have the new facility in Zambia, New Life Zambia, in Livingston. So what's the plan moving forward? I mean, obviously God's brought you into the New Life family for a reason. So tell us about what's the next steps? What are we looking at here for this new ministry?
Well, of course, to keep this particular ministry, and this is why Anita is now with us. Well, not just that, I shouldn't put it that way. She is my daughter.
Yeah.
Heiko was. He really was a great guy, and we shared a lot of things together. But Anita's coming to help us to promote and to keep pushing forward. She's very skilled in a lot of things. She's capable. I've never met anybody quite as visionary as her, other than maybe myself and a few other people that I know. But she's capable of being very sensitive to what the Lord's doing and in her life and in other people's lives. And she's coming in to help us to build this the CART ministry up. And she mentioned it, PET. As again, PET's an acronym for Personal Energy Transportation. That was the beginning of the ministry back 28 some odd years ago now. And we're in the process now of changing it over to mobility. You can't believe how many people hear pet and they think dog and cat. You know?
I can imagine.
It's kind of hard. So it's just purposely and that's
so it's just a bit of rebranding there.
Yeah, it's just rebranding it, and we will. But the thing is, she's coming in to help us with that. So she's just getting started. And what our hope for all of this is that because I'm getting older, I'm 70. I'll be 72 in February, and I just can't do what I need to do anymore all the time. I'll keep doing it as long as I can do it. But we're needing young, fresh minds and vision and to come in, and she's one going to do that to carry this ministry on forward, and hopefully with a few other things as time goes by. So we're at the process right now. What it means is we've got to help her find financial support to live back in Africa full time, where she doesn't have to keep coming back to the United States. That's always a big problem for any missionary. We of course ran through all those problems ourselves over the years, and the church just isn't what it used to be anymore in the United States. And there's a lot of things changing, but at that point, we're needing to help her find what's needed to keep her there full time, and then just to learn the, for lack of better words, trick of the trades and how we're going to go about building it from this point on. Because it is a lot of mission work is a lot like building a business. That's what you were saying at the very beginning of the cast. It's a different form of type of thing, but ministry is ministry, and it takes people, it takes skill, it takes finances, it takes vision, it takes desire and passion to do it, to move forward. Not everybody can do what Anita and I do. I understand that. A lot of people would like to, but they just can't. Some people just can't do it, and I get it. But we can be their hands, their feet, their eyes, and their passion, and try to bring to other people. Because the part of the blessing is not just the person that's receiving the cart or the missionary that's there to happen to be the facilitating person to do it, but it really is blesses those that support, people that financially give. And to be able to tell that story and to get it back to them and to share with them what they're doing and the differences, that's a very big thing, because people really want to be a blessing to other people.
Sure.
That's why the Bible says it's better to give than to receive. And it's a very true thing. You can't outgive God.
No.
You could try, but I haven't yet been able to. And I have, believe me, I've tried just about everything you can think of in life, but so moving forward, to go back to your question, it's just to continue to build this. And it's not just the CART ministry, the mobility Zambia ministry, but continue with education and to build up all the levels and all the different resources and ministries, the outreach ministries of it, that gets involved with that. And one of the other resources that came out of the New Life Center was the ability to hold crusades and bringing evangelists. Of course, Blake, and I think Bill, Blake Lorenz and them. And we've had tons of other people that come out that are great evangelists that bring out a real vibrant way of sharing the Lord's word to people and change people's lives. And that's where we have seen so many people as lives change. And the New Life Center, both of them will be involved, especially the one in Kitwe. We hosted annually what was known as the Holy Spirit Encounter. And what it was is I'd gather, all these churches are growing and rapidly building. Well, all these pastors, I mean, some of these pastors might eat one meal every other day. There's no financing to put their kids to school. The struggle to build the church in Africa is very hard, and we knew that. And so we're trying to help them as much as we possibly can, but they get discouraged. They're just human people.
Sure.
I mean, we all fall short of many things. So I said, well, we got to do something to help these pastors, keep them focused and encouraged. So we started asking them to come to the New Life Center, and we would hold what we call the Holy Spirit Encounter event just for our pastors. The Bible tells us to love one another, to stir one another, to provoke one another into love and good works. Well, you got to keep people focused that way. So that's what we were doing. And that one outreach, believe it or not, has helped more than I can possibly imagine when it comes to building the spiritual growth of the country. Zambia was named. I forgot what year it was. 2011, somewhere right around in there. And, Africa can be a very unrest continent. There's a lot of unrest in different countries. But Zambia was named the most peaceful nation on the continent, and it was classified as a Christian nation.
Oh, wow.
Even our president must have a profession of faith and attend church regularly to be the president of the country. And that's kind of a first for many of the presidencies and the leadership of the different countries in the continent. So we just kind of carried on with that theme and just tried to keep our pastors focused and brought in the spiritual aspect of it. And then we started doing crusade work, going out into the deep bush, and the stories I could tell there. I mean, you just can't imagine. And it's just been fun down through the years to not only tell people about Jesus, but to see how the communities have changed, pastors' lives have changed, children's lives have been changed, the pet ministry, the educational lives have been changed. And I mean, I've got kids now. In fact, I got an email or a text message, a WhatsApp message from one the other day, a little boy that used to sit in my lap during a church service, now married and kids, and he has his own children. He was telling me all about his new baby and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, the circle is now fully gone around,
Right.
and it is time for me to slow down a little bit and back up and bring more. And we're looking for people to come in and help us. We'd love to turn the keys over to different ones that we can find people that would say, yeah, we'd like to find out what it means. But you can say that in your heart. I mean, there might be somebody listening to this right now saying, I want to go do that. Well, that's great. But what it takes, you have to kind of come and, as James knows, James came out and you were there for a year or so. Yeah. But then after a while, they realized it was a little bit more than what they were thinking it was going to be. And it just wasn't something that could, that doesn't mean anybody's failed or done anything. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You have to kind of come out and really get your feet wet. And you have to be in the environment. You can't do it for 1 week or one day. You have to say, I'm going to come out for some months, or I'm going to come out for a year. Typically, when you get involved with like a mission organizational service, you sign contracts for like 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is. So you have to commit to those kind of things. So we're looking for people that have a real call for something like that on their lives, young people, young couples specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be an American, it could be others, but it has to be somebody that could be about the business of support raising, drive cars, have passports, this type of thing, how to use a credit card, that kind of thing, basic things. And so we're looking for that, and we're praying for that. And that might be something that somebody might be hearing my voice today and say, I'd like to know more about that. Just get in touch with us. We'll be more than glad to listen to what's going on in your life that the Lord might be speaking to you about, because there's places for everybody. God, Anita said it perfectly. God has a purpose and a plan. While we were yet within our mother's womb, God knew us and loved us. Yeah. And all the days of our lives were ordained for us. That's the 139th Psalm. Before one of them came to be, before we ever breathed in the air, God knew who we were. That's all there is to it. And I believe that with my whole heart. I feel sorry for a lot of people that just spend their whole life only focusing on themselves. We are very selfish at our core. And a lot of people get to their early stage of life and they go, man, I wished I would have done more. I wish I would have taken the focus off of myself and I would have done more for the Lord. I've been going through the book of Revelation lately because I'm getting old and I'm thinking about the next life, And, the two things that's just jumped out of my brain so loudly over the last year or so as I've been going through this again and again, there are two things. One of them is that I'm going to get a brand new body. It's going to be about 30-something years old and no more aches and pains and arthritis and cataracts and surgeries. I'm going in on December 17th to have my hip replaced because I can hardly walk right now. No more of those things are going to happen. And the second thing is all of us have made horrible mistakes in our lives. We have fallen way short. The Bible says all have sinned. Well, yeah, we have all really made big mistakes. But the Bible tells us only those things that was done for Christ were going to be remembered. All of the failures will no longer be a part of our lives.
Amen
Boy,
to
I'm
that.
really glad to hear that noise.
That's good. That's good preaching from a missionary right
I
there.
want to tell you, buddy, it's a good preaching for this missionary to hear himself say it, because there's so many little mistakes and things I've done where I have really fallen short. Somebody says, what is sin? If you really study the word sin, you know what it means? You missed the mark. And when I think of that, I always think of a bow and arrow in the bullseye. I missed the bullseye. That's what sin is. Just falling, not able to keep on the mark. And anyhow, so not to preach to anybody, but you know how it goes.
Well, and Anita, that's the podcast, by the way. Storytime with Delbert is the podcast. Could just record stories as you remember them, and that's the archive. That just kind of going back to some of the things that we were talking about off here. How we want to make sure that we're kind of bringing this ministry to the next level. We're giving it a brand refresh, new websites, a new energy with some creative young blood that you're bringing to the table, and just being able to there's so much goodness that is happening. We have to let the world know, right? And we want to be able to share it, whether it's on social media or whether it's at churches, but never losing sight of the heritage that it came from. And we're talking, it's 30 plus years potentially where we've been building these carts, and countless lives are changed. And so now, as opposed to us just remembering a life that we had changed, that the story you just told so beautifully, we can now document it, whether it's with our cell phones or whatever, and so we could capture that. And that just speaks volumes of how God's going to be able to move this thing forward, moving forward. Because just being able to fund it is important. Well, if we can give out 100,000 of them, let's figure out how we can. I'm an ops guy, right? So now I'm thinking, well, how can we build a facility that we can, for facilities, that we can figure out how to source the materials, make sure we have the labor that we've trained so that they can make sure they can make these things. And then we have to distribute them all over, not just Zambia, but Angola and Botswana, wherever else you guys want to take them, right? Even doing outposts in other countries is not out of the question, right? New Life International Ministries
Absolutely.
is our new ministry that I sit on the board of, and that's the vision that we have. And we just need to have great partnerships with people here in America that maybe can't take the time to live in another country like you have done your whole life, but they can give, right? Or they can come visit for a work team for 2 or 3 weeks or so. And just the amount of change that you could have in your life just by thinking unselfishly for a moment. So I think it's a great vision. Story Times with Delbert, coming to a podcast near you.
Yeah,
I think we have to do that. So
I'm signing up for that one.
yeah. And Bill, I think we just need to make a trip. I think we should go do.
You've been saying for years.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm waiting for you. Do it while I'm still alive, will you?
All right. We're approaching the hour mark. We'll knock it off. Let these listeners rest their ears a second. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you
Dad,
so much for
appreciate
coming in. Nita, pleasure to meet
my
you.
joy.
Pleasure to meet you too.
Absolutely,
Thanks
Anita.
for
Just
having
thank
us.
you for the gift that you're given and all the support you can give. So just for those listening, if you want to learn more about the pet ministry, it's right now. It is petzambia.org. There's a donation button there. You can give right there on the website. A couple $100 is going to buy one of these units, right? If you can't afford a full one, partner with somebody. You can do that. If you want to learn more about New Life, the New Life Center, it's newlifezambia.org or .com. We own them all. Feel free to do that. You can reach out to us all right there on that website, and we can't wait to see some more and how things
We're on
grow.
Facebook too. Facebook's pretty much up to date because
Yeah.
there's new things all the time happen on that thing.
Absolutely. And there's a pet Facebook, and there is the New Life Facebook.
Right.
So, and of course, you can always find us on Facebook as well. So.
Absolutely.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, Bill, for indulging.
I enjoyed
Ladies
that.
and Dozers.
No,
This is
I
great.
thoroughly enjoyed it.
And it's a different podcast from normal, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So
Yep,
thanks, everyone, for
loved it.
listening. Great show. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.